So, hi, Jessica Morgan. Welcome to the first podcast episode for the Far From Boring podcast. And it's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for agreeing to be my first ever guest.
Thanks, Lucy. And it's a real honor to be your first guest and to kind of build this thing from the beginning. So thank you for that.
For some of us who don't know who you are, do you want to start by giving us a bit of an overview of you and who you are?
Sure, just like the 30-second summary. So as you said, Jessica Morgan, I'm an American and a Canadian. Most of my career I've been working in Africa as an expat, living in South Africa, working in Congo, West Africa, nearly always in the mining industry, both on the consulting side and on the owner's side. So that's kind of a bit of the background.
Amazing. And you've been so busy recently because you've recently just finished, and let me get this right, the 23-24 Clipper round the world sailing race.
Yeah.
So can you just tell us what exactly is that entailed?
Sure. So I know it's a bit of a mouthful, the whole race name, but basically the whole purpose of the race is that Sir Robert Knox Johnston, who was the first person to solo circumnavigate in a sailing boat in 1969, in the mid-90s, he was inspired to create a race for amateur sailors. So these are people who are not professional, they're not the Volvo Ocean Racing Team, it's not the America's Cup, it's people like you and me who have normal desk jobs or are stay-at-home moms or retirees, just normal human beings, get the opportunity to do ocean racing. And we get to do the big ocean crossings, the North Pacific, the Atlantic, the Roaring Forties, all those big epic voyages we get to do as amateurs.
Amazing. And I'm super curious to hear about the selection process. So, you know, was there a criteria, the number of applicants? Can you tell us about that?
You kind of learn about it as you go. So I initially found the race on just the internet. I think I was looking for the Sydney Hobart or something around Christmas time, and I was thinking, you know, when is it and who's racing this year? And I just happened to come along the Clipper website. And they do a fantastic job of really just explaining what it is and kind of getting, you know, the goosebumps of I could do this. And you just email them and say, hey, I'm interested. And they send you an application with lots of questions of, you know, what do you think your most annoying habit is? And what is your stress coping mechanism? And, you know, those types of questions. And filling that out felt a little bit like a job interview, but a little bit more personal than a job interview. And that's the first step. And then once you submit that, then it goes into an interview process where you actually sit just like this, face to face, and you speak to a member of the Clipper staff who has done the race before. And they lay it out for you. They just say exactly what the race is like. They don't sugarcoat it. They get straight into it. Yeah. So things like you're going to be trapped in a fiberglass tube in the middle of the ocean with 20 other people. There is no personal space. You will be exhausted. You will be freezing cold, colder than you've ever been. You will be hotter than you've ever been, depending on where we are on the race. And you will be wet the entire time.
And then you were still like, I want to do it.
Yeah, I was like, well, yeah, that sounds good.
Where do I sign?
Exactly. And the other glamorous thing that you get on the Clipper boats is it is hot bunking. So you don't have your own bunk. You are, as soon as you climb out to go up on deck, the other crew comes downstairs and somebody crawls into your bunk. So you share that space. There's no personal space at all.
Wow. And this just sounds like it really was delving into people's, well, resilience, agility, but also their emotional intelligence. And but it seems like a lot of that was around your EQ, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, the sailing part of it was a challenge, but really the most challenging place was that interpersonal relationship. And, I mean, we'll get into it a little bit. The working with people in an incredibly stressful situation where everyone is uncomfortable. There's nowhere to just step out and get away for a few minutes. You are in it, and you are in it for weeks.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I hadn't really thought about that. Not having somewhere to go. So if you automatically went into flight mode in that stressful situation, you can't go anywhere.
Nope. No. Yeah, be it a conflict with somebody in the crew, or seasickness, or just being nervous about the type of weather that's on deck. You have no option. You are participating.
And I'm interested to hear, like, it would be very naive to think that there wasn't a form of conflict, and that could be like a micro form of conflict, or it could be a much more heated situation. How often did that happen?
We were very lucky on my boat. We actually had a great team that gelled pretty well.
Tell me about the team.
Well, so it definitely takes a certain personality to want to climb onto a clipper boat and do a big ocean crossing. And that personality, normally you get a lot of A-type people who are company owners or CEOs, or we had several people who were life coaches and that type of thing, where they're looking for that experience and looking for that personal development. It's interesting to see how the team develops over time. The whole classic storming, norming, team development type situation. We had that on every single leg. We had, let me back up a little bit. So on each boat, we had what you call worlders and leggers. Worlders are people that go all the way around. So for the full 11 months, they are on the boat. For my team, PSP, we had 8 worlders and about 10, 11, 12, depending on which leg of the race, leggers. And so the worlders, we did our storming, norming, forming very early on, and we kind of worked out the relationships and who communicates and how we communicate, and who's going to be in those leadership roles and how that's all going to work. We kind of sorted that out amongst ourselves. And we had a really great group of worlders on the boat. The leggers were fantastic because they brought in that fresh energy, because you just get exhausted after a while. And fresh ideas, fresh energy, and excitement, and new conversation topics, and jokes, and music, and all those things that take up time during the day. So it was great having the leggers, but you saw them going through the same processes of kind of getting the hierarchy sets, getting the communication style sets, every single time the crew changed on a stopover.
That is fascinating. And I find the whole situation just so inspiring, but it got me thinking about, it's not similar to working in remote conditions in the mine site in many respects, but surely there's some similarities you can draw upon there.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I actually, during the interview, when I was actually sitting with the clipper person, I was describing the environment at work, where working in a remote site, working as an expat, and I was saying how it's a very closed environment, and you work with who you live with, and so you don't say things at the pub that you don't want to come back to the office, and you don't take those office conflicts to the pub with you, those types of things. And when you're at work, you are at work, and when you're home, you're home. And those, very similar things to being on the boat, where you're working with your team, and your team has to be able to have fun, and you have to be able to really buckle down and get the job done as well. So really a lot of overlap between expat mining camp work and ocean racing.
Like thrown into, maybe arduous conditions, unknown conditions with people that you've never met before, because that is almost the rotational life, isn't it, in the mine site as well?
Yeah, and having most recently worked in West Africa, where we do have, it is an active conflict zone. We work through issues around the GLE incursions on a daily basis, and so you do get to know your coworkers and how they deal with stress, and how to best utilize people in stressful situations.
For sure. It's just so fascinating, and I just think, we'll talk about it later, but you're just constantly evolving by pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. I'm in so much admiration. You mentioned on your LinkedIn post that obviously going to be lessons that you learned at sea that you're going to carry now for life. So what were your main takeaways, would you say, from the experience?
Probably basically what we just said is the main takeaway was stress coping mechanisms. And they're everybody deals with stress differently. Some people really want to talk about it and they want to get it out and they want to understand what's going on. And some people just retreat into themselves completely. Some people eat everything they can find on the whole boat, and some people just stop eating completely. Some people get really catty, and some people get really wanting to take care of people and be your nanny. And it's interesting how differently people react in a stressful situation. When you're uncomfortable, when there is a potential for safety issues, there's, anything like that. Maybe it's not even weather or boat related, but it might be interpersonal relationship. Maybe somebody's fighting with somebody else and everybody else just gets a little uncomfortable.
What did you learn about how you deal with stress then in that particular environment?
I definitely am one of those people that just kind of steps back and goes, whoa, how are we going to approach this problem? What's going on? Do I need to get involved? Is it better if I just stand back? So that's definitely what I learned about my own stress mechanism or stress coping mechanism, is that I'm one of those people that just goes, let's assess this situation.
I think that comes from a place of maturity and experience, doesn't it? And like, energy is a resource. Like, is this my battle, I guess, as well?
Yeah.
So I know not just from this experience, but many you've been in and you've touched upon it, but like, how has pushing yourself out of your comfort zone really aided your personal growth, do you think?
So let me give a bit more background about myself. So when I was in my early 20s, just a year, maybe 2 years out of university, I was working for Freeport McMoran and on their projects development team. And we were building the first real big commercial investment in the DRC and the Congo after their civil wars. So this was before their elections or anything had been held yet. And they asked for volunteers on who wanted to go work on this project, who wanted to build it. And I think I was the only person in the company that raised my hand.
So fair, okay.
So as an early 20-year-old, they gave me 1 week of French class and sent me off to the Congo. And I was the first American expat on site. We were pulling equipment out of the jungle. It had been sitting there since the 1970s. We were hiring people that had never even seen a computer to run these sophisticated survey systems. We were basically building roads through completely virgin territory. It was incredible. It was fun. It was challenging. And that really set the tone for my entire career. So I went back to Phoenix, to our corporate office, and kind of went, ooh, this is boring.
Yeah, I was going to say, what a contrast.
And so I got a work visa for South Africa, packed my bags and left. I didn't even have a job lined up and nothing. I just moved to South Africa and said, bye, guys. And so that's my comfort zone.
And I feel like there's that beautiful quote, isn't it, that your comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there.
Yeah.
And what was so compelling when you and I first connected is just how much you embody that. And it must nurture that inner confidence as a result. And, almost like grit. To me, like, there was this study done by a woman called Angela Duckworth, and she defined grit as like where passion meets perseverance. And I get that sense of grit from you, from that resilience and putting yourself in these more challenging, arduous situations. And I love it. It adds to your tapestry.
Thanks. I love both those quotes. That I'm going to steal them from you completely.
Please do. So how do you think that all of these experiences is going to enrich then your leadership skills now in the workplace?
Coming back to exactly what you're saying about understanding people's stress mechanisms, the patience, the perseverance. One of the things I always say about my leadership style is communication. And that was true on the boat as much as it is in any office environment or any mining environment. Making sure that you communicate accurately, concisely, clearly, giving the message that needs to be heard, not extra information and not too little information. Really just making sure that communication is clear and happening. I just learned that over and over and over on the boat. My role specifically on the boat was team coordinator, which meant that during stopovers and while we were on the boat, everybody knew where they needed to be, had the information. There was a lot of stuff during stopovers about you're repairing the boat, repairing the sails, making sure the food got on the boat, that the right food got on the boat, that the boat was clean. We had a lot of social commitments with Clipper and with the host ports that everybody needed to be in the right places at the right time. So all that kind of information. And what I found was that if I gave everybody all the information, then they would just ask the same questions as if I just gave them a little bit of information.
Okay.
So what I found the most effective communication with that team, and I think I'll carry this forward, is that it's great to sit everybody down and verbally talk people through so that they have the opportunity to ask questions and understand. But then anything that's a list, anything, there's a commitment that has been made, anything with a timeline needs to be written down clearly and concisely and posted in a place where the group can see it and share it amongst themselves. Because when you tell someone, they may not, and they may absorb it, and it probably just leaves their brain 30 seconds later. So it needs to be written down and visually available.
I love that, and that plays into different people's learning styles, and we're all wired completely differently. I know myself, I'm recently going through understanding that I actually am ADHD, so I actually receive verbal information differently to other people. So that is so amazing, and it's a bespoke way of making sure that everybody's aligned. I love that, and I couldn't agree more. Communication is essential. So at the core of this pod, okay, is, for me, it's to sort of unlock or unearth the essence of modern day leaders. So what is their tapestry? And one of the reasons I was so passionate about doing this pod is that, for me, the right hire can have an impact far beyond the organization, okay? So it can leave behind a legacy or a blueprint, if you will, that in time can be replicated, and not just to influence the well-being of the employees, but the communities surrounding the mine, which often, as we've just discussed, are in developing nations. So we touched upon, obviously, communication, but what is your philosophy towards leadership and mentoring in the modern mining sector, specifically in developing nations?
So around mentorship, what hasn't worked for me is I've been in a few mentorship programs that are global, where you get matched with a great person, you sit like this online and you chat through a couple of things. You may have a list of questions that the program wants you to go through, and then that's it. And it's very cold and it's very impersonal and the connection doesn't last. What I have seen really successful in any kind of country, be it first world or in developing nations, is internships. Internships where you actually have a chance, 3, 6, 9 months to sit with an individual and get to know them really well and get to know what drives them and motivates them and which direction they want to go in their career. And, they get a chance to really have boots on the ground in an operation. They get to see what is real, what is just something you learn in school and you'll ever need again. And you really create that relationship. I've had summer interns that, of course, I've hired so many summer interns because it gives the company the opportunity to meet them as well and kind of try out and see if it's a personality match and a skills match. And then, there's interns that I've brought through my career with me that are now people that when I get hired on, I'll go, there's an opening here. I think you should apply for this. And that's the type of mentorship I think is really successful, is when you really take on a relationship with a young person or anyone really, pull that all the way through personally.
And I love that. And you talk about how you get to know them as a person. And I think if that's at the heart of your mentorship, it shows that you come from a place of empathy and compassion. You talk about relationship and rapport. I think that is behind every relationship, be it professional, be it romantically, be it personal. That's the core. That's exactly why I wanted you on the show. So do you have or know what your personal values are, do you think?
See, this is a tough one. I actually had to go online and look at what are values? What does that even mean? And it came up that my internet search, guys, it's like when you go to a wedding and every groom or bridesmaid or whatever says, I went online and found the perfect speech. It's the same thing. I did exactly the same thing. I went online and looked up, what are values? What are good values? What are bad values?
What did you unearth? What did you need from it?
So I would say my values, because I have never actually sat down and defined this before, honesty and respect are probably the key things that are my values, and not only in the workplace but in life as well. That open communication that we keep saying over and over again, making sure that you're talking to people, that you're talking to people openly and honestly, and that you're approaching them from a point of respect. Because if you respect someone, they will respect you back.
Couldn't agree more. It's mutual. I wholeheartedly agree with the integrity. I think that's such a key value of mine. Okay, so I also am really curious to see what habits maybe form some of the best leaders in the industry. So, like for me, it's a big indicator of someone's mindset. So less a result of what you're doing, but more how you think. And like, I heard a quote the other day that said the best leaders do consistently what others do occasionally. And it got me thinking, and there's been a lot of study around the power of habit, Atomic Habits by James Clear. But I'm curious as to whether you have any habits or rituals or non-negotiables.
So the way my brain works is I've got about 20 tabs open at any time, and I've got conversations happening and scenarios being run through and what ifs and timelines that I'm going through. How I manage that and how I get value from that is lists, writing everything down. As soon as it comes into my brain, I go, oh, I need to do that, or I need to check on that, I need to research that. I've got an app on my phone that I straight away just enter it in, and then once my brain's kind of settled down or I'm at a point where I can focus, I'll go through and go, need to do this, and I can physically tick those tasks off the list. That's kind of how I keep order in my brain. So, yeah, maybe I'm ADHD too, I don't know.
Maybe. And how about as well, like, what about to be as sharp and as dedicated as you are mentally? How about from a physical perspective? Would you incorporate some element of moving your body regularly as well into your daily or weekly habit?
So basically all the advice your mom has always given you, it's go to sleep early, get up early, eat your vegetables, exercise regular. That's all the same stuff that I try to adhere to in my own life. In my list of tasks for the day, I have take my vitamins and exercise, and I'm not allowed to finish the day until I've ticked both of those activities off. And so, yeah, I do a lot of running, just body weight training, that type of stuff, and I do every single day. A lot of times if it's hectic, I'll do 20 minutes of yoga or something, but I do make sure that I am physically moving at least once a day. I am a big believer in nutrition and wellness as well, and that a healthy gut means a healthy mind. And so taking care of your gut from a standpoint of feeding it vegetables, making sure you're not aggravating it with dairy too often, anything like that, keeping track of all of that, being conscious of what you're putting into your body, and making sure that you're providing the fuel to give your brain what it needs.
Love that. And I couldn't agree more. And there's more and more research, isn't there? And perhaps we'll end the conversation also on how that has actually manifested into a new enterprise for you. Okay. So, I do feel like the mining industry is maybe less quick with its uptake to as other industries, but we're always looking to evolve and be a better industry. You can see that is happening. So what would a brighter future within the mining industry look like to you, do you think?
I think the big thing that I'd love to see is that we do a better job of integrating with the governments, with communities, with the environmental groups to really make the green revolution happen. Not only make it happen, but make it more palatable. Mining industry has always had a fairly negative connotation. Whenever you say mining at a university, for example. I know the mining universities around the US, a lot of them have been closed because as soon as you say the word, everybody goes, ooh. It's got a very negative connotation around the environmental part. But we are part of the green revolution. Copper mining, lithium mining, rare earth elements, those all are required in order to build all the infrastructure and bits and pieces for clean, renewable resources and energy. And so we need to really help that communication and really put that image out there. And I'm not sure what that means or how to do that in an effective way. But that's really what I'd like to see in the industry going forward.
Same. I think that there is some headway in this area, but we're still a long way off, aren't we, compared to some industries?
Really.
So, who is the best leader you've worked alongside and why?
So my probably the one that I probably try and mimic the most in my leadership style was somebody that I worked with both at Freeport and then later on at KCC. We ran into each other again. It was a complete coincidence. Richmond Fenn. He is somebody that's worked in the industry from the get-go. Both him and his brother were long legacy folks with Phelps Dodge, which became Freeport. He grew up in Chile and worked in the Chilean operations, and I ran into them first in the US back when Phelps Dodge used to be Phelps Dodge. Probably what I loved about Rich's leadership style as a young engineer. I think managers have a tendency to try and micromanage young engineers, and Rich was incredibly patient with my learning and making sure that I had all the information and the opportunities that I needed. He didn't emotionally drive his decisions. He always approached it from a very methodical and patient standpoint, and that's something that I've really tried to take on, is that if I have an initial reaction to something, I go, whoa, wait a minute. Take a step back. Let's think about this. What is this person saying? They may not be saying it in the best tone for communicating in my style, but let's actually think of the words and not the emotion behind it and see, is this the right way to approach this problem? And that's something I've really taken on from Rich's leadership style.
Oh my gosh, you can really see that from what you said as well about dealing with conflict as well, if it ever did arise while sailing or at the mine site. So that's something that clearly that you've mirrored and matched from very early on in your career. And I absolutely love that. That's influence as a leader, right? That's still all these years on you're practicing. Love. And that goes back to, again, that legacy that then goes on. And it's like the conga. It continues being passed on through generations of leaders. Love it. So I love the expression North Star. So for me, a North Star is something or someone that guides you, okay? Someone that you look up to. So there's this feeling of looking up and following. Who or what is your North Star?
So this was one of the hardest questions because I actually had to sit down and think about it. I don't have a photo of Taylor Swift on my wall or anything like that. So I think probably who I look up most to and who as I'm developing my career and as I'm developing as a person, who I keep coming back to are my parents. I know. Oh.
I hope my kids say that about me.
They both traveled the world when they were younger, and that's something that I always wanted to do. And one of the main reasons I got into mining engineering in the first place was that opportunity to travel. And my mom's an amazing leader. She's been in government for as long as I can remember, and her way of communicating in difficult and stressful situations where you're talking to constituents who don't necessarily agree with what you're trying to say, she's always very patient and very methodical in her communication, and I have tried to replicate that wherever I can and as much as possible. My dad, a business owner, a thriving business owner, has really put that financial sense in, making sure that I'm tracking the pennies and nickels and dimes and, giving the opportunities where opportunities exist. So the combination of the two, I think, is where I've ended up.
I love that. And I love that that question actually made you really think about it. And isn't it beautiful that you landed back with your original role models? I love that. And that sounds like a wonderful, wonderful team that have brought you up and made you who you are. So that's amazing. Okay, so what's next for Jessica then?
Okay, so one of the things that when you're sitting on the boat in the middle of the ocean, you have plenty of time to think. Because there's a lot of ocean that just goes by and all you're doing is staring at it. So I think what I came off the boat with was a renewed energy, not only for the mining industry, because I love the mining industry, but also wanting to create something that was sustaining. So not just going to work and, doing mining. I wanted to do something that was a little bit back home, a little bit more tied to the community, something that, was helping the community, the wellness of the community. So when we were in Scotland, so nearly the last stop on the race, I had a friend of mine message me and say, there's a vitamin shop that's coming up for sale. I know you've been looking at it. Is this something that you're ready for in your life? Yes, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
So we've been kind of working through that deal and getting just the boring legal stuff and all that kind of business dealings. And we've now reached a point where it's going to happen. So that's what I'm busy doing now so that, I feel a little bit better integrated with the community and I'm actually providing something back to the place that I grew up in.
I love that. It's fulfilling a purpose, so being in service to something which lights up our soul, and clearly a lot of your life has been in that area. So I absolutely love that. It makes perfect sense. And the name of the company?
Whitestone Vitamins and Health.
Okay, amazing. And we'll put the link in the notes.
Thank you.
Amazing. So, Jessica, this has been such an amazing, inspirational as always, stimulating conversation. And I just thought we'd like to end on a quote that you shared on LinkedIn by Mark Twain, which I thought was beautifully selected because it was so symbolic of obviously the sailing, but also the deeper meaning behind living your life to its fullest potential and unearthing basically your inner explorer, which I loved, a life of no regrets. So I'm just going to read it out from what you said. So 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things that you didn't do than the ones that you did do. So throw off the bowlines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover. Love that. That's another one so you can use some of the quotes I use. But I love that.
Thanks. And it's 100% true. One of the things that I just wanted to talk to as we're signing off is that advice for people who are coming up through the industry. And it's exactly that. Take on the challenges. You're in the mining industry. Don't expect the mine to be in London or in New York. The mine is not going to be in your comfort zone. So get out there and embrace the culture, whether it be Kalgoorlie, Australia, or Kolwezi, DRC. Just get out there and love it and experience it. You're working in a unique industry where you get the opportunity to participate in all different cultures. So it's so amazing, and you're going to progress so much more quickly in your career if you do jump off that cliff and take on that challenge.
For sure. I've actually got goosebumps as you say that. That's amazing. Listen, been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lucy.
Take care.
Bye.